Hi guys. So today we're going to be talking a bit about banking stocks and some of what I'm seeing in the movements here. So if we have a look at the news recently, we've seen that JP Morgan Chase has basically said that the interchange fees. So there's two things that are good that I see on JP Morgan Chase recently, and why I'm bullish on JP Morgan Chase. So one of the things that's happened recently in the news is Apple Card. So Apple Card is divesting and moving away from working with Goldman Sachs. We all know this has been happening for a long time, and we've been seeing that they've been looking at working with different partners, like Synergy or Barclays potentially, and many different options. And recently, they've been saying that they look like they'll be working with JP Morgan Chase, which is the largest provider of banks in the US. We know this. And when we look at JP Morgan's Chase stock, we're seeing that this, I would say, and I think that a lot of analysts are saying that this is a pretty strong buy at. So where we're seeing now is we're seeing the announcement of a few things that have happened. So this is actually easier to see this line on the PayPal line. So something else I want to tell you guys about is on PayPal. So if we look here on PayPal, and maybe I just make this where we can see a few other options on the PayPal screen here. So let's go to PayPal. Super. So we can see here on PayPal, we can see trading on this basically falling off a cliff right here. And if we go to here, we can try to see it easier from this graph. Yeah. So if we bring this back, we can see here. So this is looking over this from the sort of 29th of July. This is when JP Morgan Chase announced that they will be charging interchange fees. So it's unlikely that they will continue to allow these fintech banks to be able to access things like plaid services. And we've seen a huge drop in this. So I think what we're seeing is that this risk is kind of factored in, but the challenge that PayPal has by not being able to work with the major banks and the banks charging fees, these intermediaries may be in significant trouble. But I think that the big winner out of this will be JP Morgan Chase. So when we bring this back up to, the PayPal one that we were looking at earlier, and we bring this out, and then we compare this to JP Morgan Chase, which I highlighted here, we can see on the trend lines here. So if we can try and draw some kind of lines here. So let me draw a kind of line of where I'm seeing this. So I'm sort of seeing this come here, and we can where we're seeing this. So I'm seeing for sure we should be heading up in the sort of 300. But if we kind of move this out and expect this to kind of move back, so let's try and zoom out on this. Right, and we'll try and draw this line again. So if we draw this line from here, dating back to what is that, around sort of May earlier this year, and then we pull this up here, we're seeing some outliers above and some outliers below, but we're seeing considerably more trading above here. So I think it's really reasonable to see this in a sort of positive light, and I think no matter how we draw this, I think even when we start drawing the bottom points here, I think we're also seeing, if I bring this down, even at the minimums here, I'm really seeing this in a very bullish way, because I'm failing to see, even if I take these two lowest points and I take these two lowest points and I extend this out, we're still looking at something like, 294, but it's not really going to go down from here, and the rebound from this looks pretty likely to come up here. So we can see this, within the next, this brings us to kind of August 5th. This is not far away, guys, and I think that the ability to this to come from 295 up to somewhere like 299 within the next week is pretty likely. And I think that the risk on that is less. So when we bring this to something like PayPal, right? And we bring our PayPal out and we move this to, looking in this, right? We've seen, let me draw some lines on here for you guys. So we're seeing a massive drop here, right? We're seeing this come from like 79 all the way down to kind of 80, sort of 70 in the area into the sort of high 60s. And if we then bring this out though, unlike the JP Morgan Chase stock, we're actually seeing PayPal having, it's hit these points several times. So, up here we were looking at, kind of like a sort of pretty high all-time stock on there. Let's see if we move that back out, to 5 years, right? So where we are now, I think, we've also got to take into consideration the long term of the stock, right? We've got to look at where we were, and we've got to look at what our trajectory is looking like to try and look at where we are at. And I think that when we take it out even further, we're seeing some growth here, but I think that the risk factor needs to be considered in the PayPal stock here. So I think that these are two of the stocks that I think are worth looking at the moment. Is PayPal being a sell, so I think that PayPal has further to go and further to drop, and I think that there's more uncertainty and risk there in PayPal. And I think that when we try and look at JP Morgan Chase, I see considerable. I mean, you see the line that I drew up here earlier, and you just see that that's really up there at the top. In the opportunities are no matter how I splice this, it's really really looking positive. So yeah, that's my first quick 10-minute one, and I think that. We'll circle back on more of these and give more of these